All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Competence Podcast. We're talking college football and it's rivalry week. This is part 2 of our rivalry week series. Make sure you've hit that notification bell. Get notified every single time we've dropped a new episode. And go back and check out part 1. We're talking about all the games on Saturday, the big time rivalries. I'm joined by my co-host, the man who's once considered a top 3 baddest man on the planet between John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, but John Wayne's gone. So, Fresh, it's just you and Clint Eastwood.
Hey, whoever made up that ranking, I appreciate it. You're all too kind, but wow, that's an honor that I don't know where that came from, but I'll take it. I'm not going to turn that down. It's doing great. We're in the rivalry week part 2 episode. This is all straight Saturday games. All this, the implications of the playoff. Obviously, Tuesday night came out with the updated rankings. This is really for a lot of teams, if you're not playing for a conference championship, this is the last chance to showcase. You got to show up on Saturday, not just, sometimes it's a rivalry game, sometimes it's just an opponent in your conference, Miami, but it's just a team who gets to show up and get the job done. And sometimes style points are needed right now to influence the committee. I know there's a lot of 2-loss or 1-loss teams who potentially could lose and have that 2-loss this week. You got to put up and shut up now. Now style points are needed to be that lasting memory in front of the committee's eyes. Yes, there's chaos. Yes, the committee is clueless in some cases. There's a Miami-Notre Dame debate. The Miami debate really doesn't solve anything, folks. You know why? Because they aren't playing for the ACC title. Unless they're in the top 10, they're not going to be – who cares? The fact that you put Miami in the top 12 and people put up the graphic that they're representing the ACC is actually egregious because they aren't playing for the title. They have to get in that large bid, and that requires a lot of moving pieces to happen. I don't care what they are compared to Notre Dame. But the committee, as you can see, is chaotic. There is unknown every single week. So take care of business this week. Beat your rival. Beat them handily. No excuses. Play like a champion.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot to talk about in our wrap-up show here, folks, because the dust is going to settle. The ground is going to kind of be laid out in front of us of championship weekend. We should get a pretty clear picture of what that's going to look like. It's also going to probably open our eyes a little bit to what the playoff committee is going to set up for the 12-team playoff this year. Fresh, real quick before we get rolling into these rivalry games, we updated this and it was kind of been a fun level of engagement there. I've been taking a look at strength of schedule, looking outside of just what is put out there propaganda-wise from either Fox Sports or ESPN or whoever, and looking at just opponent strength of record. Again, the interesting thing is Ohio State's at number 1. They're rated 12th when you look at opponent win-loss percentage there. Indiana and Texas A&M, both in the low 20s. If you take a look at the teams that have been rated in the college football playoff, Georgia coming in at number 6, one of the better strengths of record. Texas Tech is actually only in the 20s. And then you have teams like Oregon at number 8. And a team like Oklahoma, who has played kind of a gauntlet of a schedule, has only 2 losses at 9-2, has the toughest ranked schedule when you look at opponent records, and it's not even close to the number 2 team. There's a 5% difference between the number 1 and number 2. 2 through about 15 is a much more tighter grouping, but man, I don't think people really understand what Oklahoma has gone to get there, and then they face 7-4 LSU to end the season.
Yeah, Oklahoma's gone through a grind. We kind of looked at it even, our preview episodes way back in August where this team could have been really, really good, which they're showing they're actually really good, or they could have been really, really bad because that schedule was just going to be a beast. And it really, how do they build momentum? You kind of look back. I thought when they lost to Texas, with John Mateer being injured, and that was kind of there's an unknown period right there. He's come out the hand injury, and Texas came out and beat the brakes off and be like, all right, is this the tipping point for Oklahoma? Is this where they're going to fall off and they're going to, that decision's going to be made? And the way they've held together, they played better. That game kind of returned them around. The offense hasn't played up to expectation. We expected much more Washington State, John Mateer, and throwing the ball all around and putting up fancy big-time numbers. But the defense has elevated their game to a point where if the offense isn't showing up, the defense has always been travel. And that was evident at Alabama, forcing 3 turnovers. Bama had 200 more yards than Oklahoma did total offense, but a pick 6 and 2 red zone turnovers. The scoreboard's what matters in the end. That's where we get caught up sometimes in stats where what actually happened on the field. But Oklahoma's defense, if they can keep playing hot, they're going to be a dangerous out in the playoffs because I think they're locked in right now. But they can't overlook LSU. If you look over LSU and get that 3rd loss, it's all for naught. So you're so close that mind your P's and Q's, dot your I's, cross your T's, get across the finish line. finish that first objective of making the playoff and then let it all sort of play from there. You cannot overlook this last week. You're so close. You're like, I'm right there. It's kind of like, not to put wedding jinx that people have had bad weddings, but you see the bride at the end of the aisle and they're like, you're in the church, you're ready to go.
Hmm.
And the bride's like, screw it, I'm out. Like I have jitters and I'm done. You're like, I've gotten this far. You just can't get down the aisle. So if you're in that position, drive home the, don't let the committee decide your fate, even though they're probably going to mess some things up anyway. You go out there and win, state your case, and leave it at that. So Oklahoma, just find a way to finish the job.
Yeah, makes me feel much better that this game is in Norman and not LSU in Baton Rouge. I do feel much better with the Sooners at home in this contest there. Fresh, it's going to be intriguing. I think one of the first major dominoes, and we'll talk a little bit more about Alabama. I think if Oklahoma or Alabama loses, the domino and the chain reaction that would set off, because I think most of the teams in the top six, I'll go all the way through Oregon. I think the top six is completely safe. No matter what happens this Saturday, you are in the college football playoff. It's interesting. Ole Miss, if they were to get upset by Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, we'll see what that. I don't think Notre Dame's going to get beat by Stanford, so I'm going to kind of put Notre Dame in like the safe. I think they're probably pretty safe. I mean, that'd be an epic choke job if they do lose to Stanford. They deserve to be out.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah. The commission, your section, walk out the 50-yard line and look Marcus Freeman in the face and say you're out. Like if
right.
that's a loss, like I'm just like I'm not. You're out. Like we're
Right.
done.
It's so intriguing. Like you see the back half of the top 12. What if any of those teams get upsetted? What kind of domino reaction is going to happen in the rest of the field there? I think it could open up I think it almost confirmed the Big 12 would be a two-bid league then with BYU and Texas Tech.
Yeah,
I think it,
if they didn't, neither of them stumble this week, and they're
right.
both in with one loss, regardless of what happens in the conference championship. If Alabama and Oklahoma or Oregon fall, because then you have that two-loss conversation of Oregon
Mm-hmm,
two-loss, Texas Tech and BYU both have one loss playing for a conference title. If Oregon loses to
mm-hmm,
Washington, like that really it makes that game like you have to go out and finish the job. So that's what you meant the dominoes. What if Michigan for a fifth straight year beats Ohio State? Then that puts Michigan as a two-loss team. They just beat the number one team in the country for the fifth straight year. Then they have to get vaulted in that two-loss conversation, and that adds
mm-hmm,
a whole nother murkiness to the whole topic. So that that two losses really, who is it? Where they stand? If Georgia loses to Georgia Tech, it gives them two losses. I think they're still superior.
you're still
They're
safe.
one of the, they're one of the top 11 teams because we know the group of five is going to find a spot. So
Yeah.
that puts them in. But if you don't have like Oregon, you're on that threshold where that win over USC was great. That Penn State win really has been watered down. And
Yeah,
that
it's fun.
10-point loss to Indiana is kind of, I think, still has people uneasy. So you have to come out and show.
Mm-hmm,
Vanderbilt, no one really trusts you. So if you go out and beat Tennessee, maybe they'll believe, but no one really believes Tennessee either. So is that really a big win? Or is it finally getting over that in-state hump? Miami, if you lose to Pitt, you're done. If you beat Pitt, then that at-large conversation really exists. And I think you're
mm-hmm,
actually the benefit of Pitt being ranked now, because beginning to look at the schedule, we're like, well,
mm-hmm.
it's Pitt, like, maybe they're a 7-5 team at the end. No, they're playing for a spot in the ACC title game. You have a big game as a ranked opponent. That is going to elevate people's attention. If you go in and beat them, especially what they just did to Georgia Tech, then you get yourself in a conversation because it's a funny way around it. Miami beat Notre Dame, who destroyed Pitt, and Miami destroyed Pitt. Then that conversation really comes to the surface where you can't avoid it.
All right, Fresh. So I'm going to ask you a question here, and I'm going to make it kind of where you can really think about this for a moment. What team is most likely on upset alert and we'll say from Texas Tech after Texas Tech down, so Oregon down through number 12, Miami. Which one is most likely to be on upset alert? And then the other one is, if you want to see chaos, which of those teams would you be like rooting to see lose in that 6 through 12 range to say, like, I would love to see what kind of chaos would happen if blank happens?
I'm going to put Miami on upset alert.
Okay. Pitt's
And the
good.
reason why is, look, we've seen Miami fall on their face multiple times. We saw it last year. Oh, Cam Ward's the greatest, blah, blah, blah. They should have lost to Virginia Tech. They got bailed out there. They got bailed out versus Cal. The two losses came up eventually, and they kept them out. Throw a late touchdown where you have no business throwing that touchdown versus Virginia Tech. The game was well up. You're up by 17. And you said, like, we're going to add stat for Tony and get him a touchdown with a minute to go in the ball game. Did you just tempt karma? We keep hearing this talk about Miami this and Miami that, and they beat Notre Dame by 3 points in the opening week of the season back in August. Yep, you did. We all saw it. But you've had some close calls, And now's your chance. If you want to be in that large state, go out and get it done. It's a ranked opponent. Show up. You showed up big time versus USF. They fell off. You showed up and you barely beat a horrible Florida team. Obviously, it was in the middle of a rainstorm, but you did that. Now the pressure's on you. It's winner. You are in a winner-in situation on the road against a team that just destroyed Georgia Tech. Can you go out there and get it done on the road against a team that's a very good defense, a team that's has some momentum, has the coach who's inspired. 2 weeks ago they got smoked by Notre Dame at home. You want to really get that conversation set? Go out there and smoke Pitt yourself, because then head to head, you both have beat a common opponent heavily. Then you should be able to maybe get that boost over Notre Dame. But in the end, you got to just do your job. And don't put this in the committee's hands. It already is, but Notre Dame's already going to outdo Miami from a logo standpoint and a viewership standpoint. So you need to go out there and just get it win and focus on yourself. Don't let the media, don't let all this other stuff of being slighted take over. Just go out there and win. But I really think that Pitt has some fire for him, and you should be definitely paying attention to the Panthers when you head up there this weekend.
Right. All right, Fresh. Let's get to the games this weekend here. Our first stop is going to be up there in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It is at high noon. The Ohio State Buckeyes, they're number 1. They're facing the Wolverines in Ann Arbor, who are 15th in the college football playoff. You said this straight up here, Fresh. This would be 5 in a row if the Buckeyes cannot be successful. Right now, at the time of record, Ohio State is a 9.5-point road favorite. Over-under set at 43.5. Fresh, I'll let you go first here, and then I'll take my swing at this game.
So first off, since 2020, Ohio State has, 8 total losses? I'm going to say, just correct me if I'm wrong.
Something like that.
Alabama in the national championship game. Oregon, once in 2021, they lost to them last year by a point. They lost to Georgia in a college football playoff, and they lost to Michigan 4 times. That's it, folks. Ohio State just has a problem. And maybe it's Michigan. Well, obviously, a couple of years there, they were cheating, and we all are well aware of that, and it's documented. If you watch J.J. McCarthy in the NFL right now, you definitely know he is not knowing the plays of the defense ahead of time. Makes it really difficult. But there's no more excuses now. Yes, Ohio State used that as a rallying last year, I think, with Ryan Day being on the hot seat, the team being a lot of chatter, then not beating Michigan again, which have a superior football team. That fueled them in the playoff run to win Natty. And the true Ohio State Buckeye team last year showed up when it mattered down the stretch. But they still can't beat Michigan. There's no more excuses here, because if you go ahead and lose to Michigan again this time, you have to go and then dominate back to the playoff, which is possible. That's going to always hang over. Your rival is going to constantly have that one thing hang over. He's like, you won 2 national championships back to back, but the only team that beat you both times is us. And we beat you 5 straight. You haven't beat us in this decade. All that chatter just continues to keep carrying over the program. This Michigan football team, Sharon Moore, God bless them, they are not a Michigan football. They reflect more of a 2020 or 2019 version. They are not a 21, 22, 23, or 24. They have no passing game. The tight end game does not scare me. The offensive line is not what it used to be. Haynes, their running back, is great. They run the ball a whole hell of a lot. The defense isn't as dominant as it was. They have 2 losses. They haven't looked fantastic. They run the ball a lot. When they played Oklahoma beat the brakes out of them. You have no excuse. Don't go out there and try to be tougher than them like you did last year. We're going to run the ball 1,000 times. Just go out there and throw the ball to your receivers. Your 2 top receivers took last week off. They're load management. They are well rested. There is no excuse. You can't overlook Michigan, but you need to go out there and just make sure this game is over early and often. Put up touchdowns, chuck them, pressure the secondary, get after it. Your defense is legit. There's no reason that Michigan should be scoring 17 points unless their defense scores 2 touchdowns. If you can get 20, the ball game is over. I don't care if you're running it, throwing it. Your offense is lethal enough that Michigan defense cannot contend. They don't have a pass rusher that's worth a dang right now. They are a very untested football team. They're a very raw football team. They have gotten over teams that just because they have sheer talent, but they don't have legit premier talent. Take advantage of it. Put the foot down. Take out years of aggression, years of pain. Look at what happened a couple of weeks ago where last week, Tennessee had not won in Gainesville, in the state of Florida versus Tennessee since 2003, since I was in high school. They could have scored 1,000 points if they really wanted to. They took their foot off the gas, but it was 31 to basically nothing at halftime. You go out there and you put your foot down. You give Michigan no hope. You send the fans to the exits immediately. Be aggressive. Be the team that went out there and smoked Oregon in the Rose Bowl last year. Be the team that destroyed Tennessee in the playoff game. Go out there and be ruthless. If you lose this game, nobody will trust Ohio State. I think the fan base will have you so distraught of how can we not beat Michigan? That will boil over. And something like last year where there was call for Ryan Day to be fired, that actually, even though you won now, that actually might take more of the fan base. Like, I don't care about national championships. We just can't beat Michigan. Just go out there and just do it. Release it. Line Day. use your receivers, use your quarterback, push the boundary, take them deep as much as you possibly can. What I want to see outside of the two examples I just gave, remember when Mel Tucker got the extension and Michigan State came down into the shoe and in the first half it was like 40-0? I
Yeah,
want that.
35.
I want that. If we
Mm-hmm.
don't see a drubbing from Ohio State up in the, and it's not even in the shoe, you're going to their house. If you make the scoreboard operator work overtime, go get the job done. Michigan, if you want to win this football game, you need to slow this thing down, maximize the snap count, trade for 1,000 turnovers. You can't throw to win the ball game. You have to run the football game, run the football game, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. 3 yards of the cloud at us and try to do what you did last year and be just tough enough. But you don't have the defensive lineman to do what you did last year. So you're going to need a miracle. Yes, it's a rival game. Yes, crazy things happen. I don't care what the spread is. The spread could be 20, and I would say Buckeyes are covering. This is my first pick bet. I've had a rough year. Not guys, people winning, but not covering. I'm taking the Buckeyes to cover the 9.5. This will also supplant them as the number 1 seed. This will supplant them in the Big Ten title game, and that's also at stake. If you lose, does Ohio State still
Oregon.
make the Big Ten title game, or Oregon sneaks in and beat Washington?
If Oregon beats Washington, and if Oregon loses to Washington, the Wolverines get in.
There's no excuse. Ohio State, do your job. You're the reigning national champion. Do your job. End this nightmare, because if you lose, I'm serious, the bus drivers might leave you and you have to walk back. And that actually might be the best thing to happen. Michigan, good luck. Buckeyes cover.
Yeah. All right. So whatever happened last year I've never gone into a game more confident than I did last year. I thought with everything that the Wolverines were dealing with all of their injuries, that Ohio State was going to roll. What I didn't account for last year was the sheer stupidity of offensive play calling. The only major advantage the Wolverines had over the Buckeyes were their defensive tackles. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to line up and continuously run the ball again and again and again right at the defensive tackles. It drove me nuts. It drove me bonkers that we weren't throwing the football around. We didn't make the plays in that regard. I think this team is a little different. I think that you don't have to rely on Quishon Judkins and Travion Henderson, because your running backs are a little younger and your wide receivers are a little bit older. Jeremiah Smith is playing in this football game. Get him the football. He is the best player. He is the best player in college football. He is the best player in college football. There is every team in college football, I don't care who you are or who you think you have, if given the opportunity, trade for that man right there. They would trade for number 4 just because of what he is able to do against defenses. You get him the football any way possible. And if they're going to triple cover him, if they're going to double cover him all night, then you know what? Max Clare, Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, any of those guys, heck, Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter even, bring him in the mix. And again, if they're doing that, it should open up the run game. Again, you're going to have to hit them in the mouth. You're going to have to hit them in the mouth. But do what you do best in this round. Don't sit there and, hey, we're playing with our food. We're not going to put them away early. No, that's all I want to see. I just want to see Ohio State win this football game. I don't care if it's by a point. I don't care if it's by 100 points. I do not care. Just win, baby. Just win. I'll channel my Al Davis there. Just win. I don't care how much. I don't want to see another year, because one of the dumbest things in my mind is when the fan base calls for a guy like Ryan Day's head. Right now, there's what? How many openings are there left? There's 8 or 9 openings still. Something in that round.
Arkansas allegedly got filled by Alex Golich today. North Texas. Well, Oklahoma State filled North Texas' head coach job yesterday. Virginia Tech, obviously, Franklin. I think we got like 8 or 9 at this point.
8 or 9. And they're all fighting over one guy right now, Lane Kiffin. And when you look at who else is out there, who is going to deliver you a constant time in the playoff, top 10 recruiting classes year in, year out, guys who actually like playing for him. And again, as much as Ryan Day has his detractors, he doesn't have the behind the scenes issues that Urban sometimes had. Or, Jim Tressel was, again, some deal on that one. I have a lot to say on that. But Jim Tressel ran a mostly clean program. Ryan Day's done the same thing. What he's done with mental health, what him and his wife do out there is great stuff. Again, I go, even if you got some, you just got to work through it with him. You got to work through it and be patient with him. He won you a national title. Be patient with the guy. But this is the time. Go in and get this, Ryan. Go in and get this win in Ann Arbor and just let the air out. Let yourself play relaxed. Because here's the thing, even if you win this game, even if you lose this game, you're going to be tight for about 3 weeks. You're going to have to sit around because you won't play in the Big Ten title game. You'll have to wait a while until you get a home game in the college football playoff. And then you can take out your aggression of being pissed. Don't get to that point. Go into the Big Ten title game, relax, knowing you have this, and then you have a new goal in front of you. You have a new goal into the national title there as well. This Ohio State defense is one of the best defenses I've ever seen. What Matt Patricia has done has just been short of phenomenal. I would put this Buckeye defense in the same conversation as the 21 Georgia defense, as the Alabama defense a couple years prior to them, going all the way back to the Miami 02 defense or 01 defense that was completely just ridiculous. This is an amazing defense. So go in there, strangle it. Bryce Underwood is a true freshman. Confuse him just like you did with Arch Manning week 1 there. He's going to make him in your footsteps, get after him, knock him on it. The only person that concerns me is Jordan Marshall. Jordan Marshall has played very well for the Wolverines lately, going over 100 yards in the last 4 games. They don't have Justice Haynes. This guy's found the end zone. You focus on him. You put the ball in Bryce Underwood's hands, make them throw the football. We'll go from there. But again, just win. Just win in Ann Arbor.
I mean, a win would just, I think, with ease, like, all right, we're good. Let's focus on Indiana. But I'll also say, if you have a lead, a sizable lead, to your point, just win. Get some of your starters out, because in the end, you're going to probably need that offense to score some points. Put it up there, take out some aggression. But if it's the third quarter, you're up by 30, I think Jeremiah Smith can take the rest of the day off.
And don't do something stupid after the game.
No suspensions, no fights in the tunnel, because as you bring, look, it's a rivalry game. Their players might start chirping. Right. And you start getting thrown out of a ball game, and you have a Big Ten title game coming out, especially if the game's in hand, just walk away. Don't get caught up in that emotion, because that's another way where they can beat you. They can beat you by you not having to play for the Big Ten title game and costing your team.
Right. All right, Fresh, let's go to another big-time rivalry game. This one has, I don't know if this is a rivalry game, but this one has huge implications on the college football playoff. You mentioned it a little bit early on in the episode. The Miami Hurricanes are traveling north to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to face the Panthers. Right now, Miami is a 6.5-point road favorite. That makes me a little worried in this realm. I do not think Miami is going to be 6.5 points better than Pitt on the road. If this game was in South Florida, different story. Fresh, Carson Beck has had a kind of like a normal Carson Beck year. You rode the roller coaster with him. Pitt, outside of the Notre Dame drubbing, has played really well. They beat a very good Georgia Tech team and beat them handily. What do you got for Miami versus Pitt?
Well, yeah, first off, the Carson Beck experience, you're going to get great touchdowns, but if the receiver starts dropping passes, that's where the offensive line's not giving him what he believes ideal protection. He does get a little flustered. So that's where this Pitt defense and Pat Narduzzi, if you can get pressure on him and get in the receivers' heads, that's where things start firing. It's a roller coaster. It's an emotional roller coaster on that team. And the maturity factor, we talk about getting drafted, worries me about Carson Beck. He has the tools physically, but the mental thing of the game. If my receiver's dropping the ball, then I start trying to force stuff, or I start getting a little too emotional, or I go away from a guy, you kind of breeze. Because then you start forcing stuff, that's where you're sunk. And the defense knows it, the defensive coordinator knows it, and they start playing to that. And the receivers start overthinking, and it all spirals. So go in this ball game with a chip on your shoulder, with something to prove. Because right now that conversation is, why is Notre Dame above Miami? Well, Miami has 2 losses as double-digit favorites to unranked opponents at the time of the game, to SMU and to Louisville. You beat a Notre Dame team week 1 by 3 points when they stormed back in the fourth quarter against the guy making his first career start. I think they're giving C.J. Carr a little bit more buffer in that realm based on the expectation of Miami. You have to go out there and prove it. What happened last week in the way that Pitt destroyed Georgia Tech, that gives you a chance right now, because you can go in there and do what Notre Dame did, like I mentioned earlier. Now the committee has no excuse. Number one, there's the head-to-head back in August, whatever. Teams change, things happen. But right now, within 3 weeks, you both have played the same team in the same spot. And if you have beaten them same or more, that even offers more of a credence. So there's no doubt. And there's a reason why the phrase is be remembered in November. August, those teams, I forget what I was doing back on August 31st. The team has changed. The starting lineup for the most part has changed. We are currently now, who is playing at this moment right now the best team? Miami has not looked as great recently. Notre Dame has looked a lot better, especially when you hang 70 on Syracuse and you have a viewership and an alumni base, you're going to draw more people in. Go out there and make a statement against Pitt. Do what they did. Do what Notre Dame did, and you'll put yourself in a much better conversation. Obviously, you're going to need some help because you're not playing for an ACC title, and you are behind in that two-loss mix. So you got to go out there and make a statement. Pitt, which team are you? Are you the team that was absolutely run over by Jeremiah Love and that entire Notre Dame offense? Or are you the team that came out there and absolutely shut down the running game and shut down Haynes King and that Georgia Tech offense? Two very good offenses, two superstar players, one in Love and one in Haynes King. You could not stop the running game, but you ended up containing the running game and forcing King to make bad throws and a lot of turnovers early. Maybe the moment was too big for Georgia Tech and they kind of fumbled it away early. You built the momentum, but you played with aggression and you took it to them. Maybe that butt whooping from Notre Dame actually got you to focus and play better. But now can you do it 2 weeks in a row? If you do, there's a good chance you're playing. You need some help. But there's a good chance you keep your alive to play for the ACC title and get yourself in the playoff. If you don't and you get drubbed, it's a more of a yeah, but just like last year where you started off 7-0 and you finished up 7-6. It's great, but nobody truly trusts you. So there's a lot of emotional wills in this ball game. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of points because teams are just chucking it. Even though the defense for Pitt, I think, has two very, very good linebackers, I'm not sure about that secondary. And Tony for Miami is legit. The dude can score. We saw him, versus Florida State. He took a 2-yard pass and took it in, I think, an 80-yard touchdown. The guy can run. They have playmakers all over the field. So if they're in a groove, how can that Pitt defense and the linebackers contain? How can that secondary contain and shut down Carson Beck? We will know in the first quarter if Pitt is going to win that football game or not, or be in the ball game. Miami, when they lose to SMU and they lost to Louisville and they had those games last year, that first quarter, maybe the first 5 minutes, second quarter, was just a complete no-show. And they were scrambling to get back in the ball game late. If Pitt can get after them early and build momentum and that defense can then take over, it gives yourself a chance. But we're going to know really early on that what game we're going to kind of have. Miami better take this thing very, very seriously. Be on upset alert. But in the end, I think the Hurricanes I trust Carson Beck more than I trust Henschel. And with Desmond Reed being banged up and Turner being only the one back, I think Miami has a little more left in the tank than Pitt does right now. As much as that pains me to say it, and I think it'd be a great game. It actually might be a better game if more people are watching because that Michigan-Ohio State will be over. It's also being a new kickoff. But I think Miami finds a way to win and keep themselves in that playoff at large big conversation.
Yeah. I'm going to go with whoever's going to win the point of attack here, Fresh, and whoever's going to be able to run the football. Again, Fletcher has looked good at times, and then other times it's been Brown who's kind of carried the load there. I'm wondering which one's going to be the guy in this game. Who are they going to lean on when the chips are down, when they need that tough yard? Who's it going to be? Because both those guys have had good games and they've also had bad games. And then you take a look at Pitt with what you've done with Turner there. The kid's a freshman. And Pitt's doing this with a really good loaded freshman class there. I think Pitt needs it to kind of keep the class together because everyone's going to be looking at these players and maybe trying to poach them from the transfer portal at the end of this year. So if you get into the playoff and you can have some success there, then maybe it's like an SMU thing where we keep the band together because we made the playoff. And the only way Pitt's going to do that is by beating Miami and getting into the ACC title game and winning it there, which is a winnable game at that point. Mm-hmm. Miami, you need this game, so I expect them to come out with their hair on fire. I expect the defense to be flying around. I expect this offense to try to really push my Pitt to the limit and see if they can kind of say, hey, let's go into a shootout. Like, keep up. Like, can you keep up with us in a shootout? Carson Beck's, we're going to try to throw 4 or 5 touchdowns with the kid. And he's got the ability to do it. Again, is he going to be able to read Pat Narduzzi's defense? Is he going to be able to read the coverage there? Again, he's been good at times. Let me change that. He's been great at certain times. And then it's the good and the bad. It's Sid from Ice Age all over again. And then you're sitting him throwing an acorn to the squirrels, basically, not protecting the net. I mean, good God, this kid can make some dumb decisions. And then he makes great decisions. Which Carson Beck are you going to get? And that's the really big question. Just because I think it means more to Miami, I'm going with the Hurricanes in this game. I really would love to go with Pitt because I think Narduzzi's got one of those teams that's in a year or two from now could be a monster in the ACC. But you got to keep the band together. And I don't necessarily know if they're going to be able to do that in the NIL transfer portal age. But Here's hoping. Here's hoping. And maybe Pitt pulls off the upset in this one. I
It'll
don't
be
know.
a great game regardless. I
It
will.
will
I
be.
mean, look, I know you're probably not. You're going to watch the game on the side or just check in because you're going to be watching your full
Right.
game. But that's a game that I will. If you're not in and that Ohio State game's under control, I think viewership for this Miami Pitt game is going to skyrocket to the roof, especially in the second half. If they do like time periods of the day, all right, Ohio
Mm,
State's up by 21. You're going to start seeing that maybe drop a little bit. And you're going to start seeing a major spike on the Pitt Miami game because there's so much more intrigue around that one.
yeah. All right, Fresh. Let's go to Rocky Top. This is a weird rivalry game because this game has been dominated by the Volunteers year in, year out. And I think this is the first time ever Vanderbilt has like a legit chance in this. Tennessee is still the favorite in it by 3.5. Vanderbilt comes in 9-2, and at 14, they would need this if they want to have even a snowball's chance to get in. I mean, maybe we should talk about which is better, beating the spread or them showing Pavia's mom twerking in the
Please
stands
don't.
here.
Please don't. We don't need any of that.
ESPN loves it for some reason, or the
They
ESPN cameraman at least do.
they love it. They love the Theo Vaughn connection that drives social media engagement and podcast stuff. It's a whole. I mean, more power to him. He's done what he brought attention to himself. He embraces it. He doesn't run from it. It is very Johnny Manziel like, maybe Johnny Manziel 2.0, and kind of bringing to that point. Manziel at least won a Heisman. He beat Alabama, which probably is done. He was able to bring A&M off a map and get them maybe back to being football relatively
Yeah.
relevance, for a period there. He's done the same thing. But in the next step, these are, Manziel never took A&M to an SEC championship game. He never had a
Mm,
chance to play for a national championship. He did it all through flair. He's very similar. Probably right now is a chance of making a statement for a Heisman campaign and also getting Vandy to a playoff. So there is a lot right there. And you could talk it, but if you could back it up, that's what we're going to find out here because
mm-hmm.
you beat Vandy last year with nothing to lose. Nobody expected it. You beat Alabama, last year when no one expected it. This year on the return trip, you got beat. This year, you lost to Texas. In both years, you lost to Texas. Even though you stormed back, your best wins are what? Missouri, but you barely beat Missouri with Missouri's backup quarterback. I mean, your record, you are what your record is. You can't make your schedule. We say that for a long, long time. They're 9-2. You've done
Mm,
what you had to do. But this has to be the moment where you show up and get it done. It's Tennessee. It's not the greatest Tennessee team under Josh Heupel. I'm going
it's
to
not.
say right now, it's the worst
It is.
under Heupel's reign. It's right. It's right. It's right for the taking. But you've got to show. Go out there and get the job done. You want to make the claims about I need an extra year because JUCO doesn't count. You want to be the ascending program and show you can put the team on your back and take them to new heights and put Vanderbilt in rare air. You want to make a last ditch effort to recruit Jared Curtis to stay home at Nashville and play at Vanderbilt and be the next quarterback and really take the next step and show that you're a legit football program. This is it. Going into not Rocky Top, not just win it there in Nashville. Go into Rocky Top, into the Sea of Orange, into your in-state rivalry. You haven't been you haven't been the little brother. You've been the little cousin to Tennessee football. Let's just be real, folks.
Little
It's Vanderbilt.
second cousin.
You have to go in there and make a statement. If you go in there and beat Tennessee in that orange, we call it kettle of goo, it gives you some more credence. It potentially puts you in that 10-2 category to get that large bid. It shows you can win a big game on the road in a hostile environment because it's going to be a hostile environment. It's not going to be the best Tennessee team, but it actually, I mean, I don't think we agree. I finally put them back in my top 25 this past week, but they're 23. It gets you there, but you need to show me
Mm-hmm.
something because you don't have the ranked wins to support. If you want to have a Heisman campaign, that means you have to go out there and put up 4 touchdowns on the road. Mendoza right now is going to he's not going to have a chance. Who cares what he does with Purdue? It's what he's going to do in the Big Ten title game. It's really going to supplant him as a Heisman Trophy winner, in my opinion, or not. But you're not going to have that chance. You've got to lay it out on the line. But Pavia, put up or shut up time. It's all the cards really have to be on the table on Saturday afternoon. Tennessee, it's been a bumpy year. You're not making the playoff. But if you can come out here and get a win, it just shows you still own the program. It's going to tell recruits, you know what, that's great what they're doing over there in Nashville. But we're still here. Our worst year, we still were able to beat beat this rival, not all rivals. But they find a way just to they keep that ownership in back. Because if you lose to them, then people are going to start saying, well, you can't you beat Alabama every once in a while. You can't beat Georgia. Can't beat Vanderbilt now. Like, where's this program going? So the Tennessee, the icon of Heupel and, what he has there that's also in question. It's got a lot on the road, a lot on the line. I'm still going Tennessee. I just don't, I don't trust the volatile Diego Pavia and his emotions. I saw it last year with it on the line. They only lasted a half, and Tennessee took over. I'm taking the Vols to win and maintain that rivalry dominance. And Pavia will see his Heisman campaign drift away mid third quarter.
Fresh, I will admit, in the 5 years we've had this podcast, I have been a Josh Heupel apologist. I have given the guy a break. Again, I've met the guy a few times when he was at other stops at Missouri and at UCF. I got an opportunity to meet him, and he was one of the nicest coaches I've ever had a chance to meet. And I always wanted to root for him because I thought he was a pretty decent guy, regardless of how much he looks like a grown-up Bobby Hill more than anyone else. But
Bobby,
damn it, Bobby, this Tennessee team, they're not as good as the other ones. They aren't. They're
no,
not.
it's
There's no Hendon Hooker. This isn't. I mean, they're about what Nico was with them, I guess, but I think they had a little bit better skill position at it. And the defense is okay. It's all right. They got 35 sacks on the year, and they get after the quarterback real well. They got some. They have
the receivers. Like for all the talent they have at wide receiver, I still don't. It's like, yeah,
right.
okay.
It's like, yeah, and it's not. Again, if I had grown up in Knoxville, I went to Tennessee, like that was my family, like college. At least it's not the Jeremy Pruitt years. And again, it's better,
Or the
but
Derek Dooley years.
the Derek Dooley or Lane Kiffin year or any of those teams, it's life has gotten better for you as Tennessee fans, but this one's just rough. Vanderbilt can put a cherry and some sprinkles on a nice 2-year run where they can kind of puff their chest out and say we're not like the bottom dweller of the SEC anymore. That mantle has been kind of taken over by either Arkansas or Kentucky or Mississippi State. I don't know which one you consider yet. Vanderbilt is kind of put in there. I'm picking Vandy to go into this game. I just feel like Diego has had like a year where he needs like that last little that last little statement game where he shows out, he shows how great he has been as a college quarterback. He needs to go. Your time is done after this year, in my opinion. But when we look back and we talk about quarterbacks and Fresh, you brought Manziel there. We will always and forever talk about Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M and how much fun he was to watch. We'll always talk about, as much as we couldn't stand Tebow and the holier than now persona and stuff like that.
Got it done.
Tebow was impressive to watch. What Dak Prescott did at Mississippi State, we both couldn't stand Caleb Williams, but he definitely, stuffed the stat sheet over there at USC. The list goes on. Michael Vick over at Virginia Tech, way, way back there. You will always talk about certain players at certain universities, and Diego's going to be that at Vanderbilt when this is all said and done. So I'm just going to pick Vanderbilt, not because of any like statistical thing, not because of any I feel like they have an advantage there. It is really just gut feeling on capping off a great year, and that doesn't take anything away from Tennessee. I still think Josh Heupel is a great coach. I think he's the best coach they've had since Phil Fulmer there, and I think he's going to eventually figure this whole thing out. I think Tennessee will be competitive again. It's just in a lull year. He's in a low year, and there's very few teams in all of college football that can go through this whole thing without a low year. You can pretty much name them on one hand, probably. So give me Vanderbilt in this one. I just, again, call it gut feeling.
So I'm putting some funny here. Vanderbilt's 2 losses. If they're winning, there's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching on Saturday
There will
and
be.
Friday. And, who's the 2-loss team? Are they winning? Are they losing? Someone's like, oh, man, all right, we got to go find a way to score. Because then you're not only just wins and losses. If you have the game at hand, then it's how can I add that extra style point? Do I have to put up extra touchdown for a Heisman campaign, or do I need to make my win over this person look better? There, with this game also kicking off the same time as Oregon, Washington. If Washington has the lead on Oregon, Vanderbilt has the lead on Tennessee. You're like, okay, well now we're potentially in that conversation of 2 losses. I have got to put my foot down. And then for the Heisman campaign.
Yeah.
Heisman campaign, I'm going to see, they're going to just let Pavia run and throw as much. He's going to play the entire game, try to put up stats. But if they lose, your Heisman campaign is gone. You're not going to get a 3-loss, Heisman Trophy winner. So you also have to make sure you're winning and then running the score up on Tennessee to catch up, because Mendoza is going to run it up on Purdue, and he's going to have a premier defense play Ohio State if everything goes to chalk to really showcase and maybe put the cherry on top, to use your
Mhm.
quote earlier, to lock that down. So this is your last chance, not only your legacy at Vanderbilt, to get yourself a potential playoff spot in that large bid, to get yourself in that legit Heisman campaign. Like, you've got to put the foot down. And Clark Lee, this can't always be about him, though. It can't be about Diego Pavia. It has to be about winning the football game. And that has to be a contained. You saw last week where Lee had to pull him back out of the game when they had the lead. He's like, dude, Diego, you're not going back in. You have to keep that mentality this week. The win for the team is more important than you going out there and trying to throw around where maybe an
Right.
injury, it derails everything. Because then, well, it's Vanderbilt's 10-2, but they don't have Pavia. They're not the same football team. A lot of play with the ego on Saturday afternoon up in Knoxville.
Right. And even if you see Miami has beaten Pitt by like 8 or 9, and it was a close game all the way up until fourth quarter, Miami pulls away at the end, and you're Vanderbilt in the second half and you're beating Tennessee by 4, because one of the things you're going to need to do is jump Miami, because
Mm-hmm.
both of you would be fighting for an at-large bid there. I think that could cause for them. Maybe they play tighter. Maybe, it gets coached differently. You bring up a very interesting point of some of these games after the noon kickoff where you're scoreboard watching and you're going, man, we got to turn this up.
Like we've talked about all year about surviving advance. This is that one
Mhm.
week where, all right, now we got, you're in a long race. Like, now I have to put it into the next gear. I've got to shift it
Right.
up, really put the foot down to just get across the finish line with as
Mhm.
much, pump and pump and,
Yeah. Last 100 meters in the 4x100 race.
yep.
All right, Fresh. Let's go to Seattle, Washington. This is Oregon versus Washington. This is a fun rivalry game that is kind of brewed up over the last couple of years. I actually have talked to an Oregon fan, and I asked him, I said, do you
Those
really
exist.
yeah, they do actually here on the East Coast too. And I said, they
Look,
got
not,
they got
not, not
football
Jared listening
jerseys
out.
and everything. No. Not over here. He's long gone. But Oregon, I was talking to an Oregon fan, and he said, I go, let me ask you, how do you consider Washington? Do you consider them a rival? And he said, over the last like 5 or 6 years, they have supplanted, like Oregon State was always the big rivalry with the Civil War. Washington's kind of moved past like Oregon State. And he said, I've always still considered USC our biggest rival in his eyes. And he said Washington, though, has kind of moved to that number 2 position. Washington's a dangerous team. They're a dangerous team. 2 of their losses are to Ohio State and to the Wolverines right now. I think I'm trying to remember, their third loss is to Wisconsin, which they played absolutely awful in that football game. But there is a lot of talent on this Washington team. This Oregon team, though, different. It's different than what we've seen in years past. We've talked about this before. This Oregon team is winning with defense and not like this electric offense that's going to throw the ball all over the field, even though they can still put up points.
Yeah, like this Washington team, Jed Fish has gotten some offense going, but they're all over the place. You never know what team you're going to get or how long they're going to play. If they're going to get a full 60, because they played Ohio State for about 30 minutes and then they failed
Mm-hmm.
off completely. The offense no show versus a terrible Wisconsin football team. Even though Wisconsin beat Washington, Illinois back to back, what did it take Luke Fickell to be almost fired for them to decide to play football up there? And it hasn't been pretty, but they still won. Where's this team's head at? Is Jed Fish's name being offered up another job? Where's his offense at? Where's his defense at? This is your last ditch effort. You have a chance to ruin Oregon's season. The 2 years before, on with Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix Jr., Dan Lanning couldn't get past them. Last year he did, but that was a terrible Washington team in a rebuild. Where has Washington grown since then? Are the Huskies ready to take it all out, take all their aggression out on the Ducks? The Ducks had a very emotional win last week over USC. How can they follow this one up? Because here's what happened. If Oregon loses, which they beat a terrible Penn State football team in overtime. They got beat by 10 at home versus Indiana, where they were in that game for about 2.5 quarters. They played really, really well last week versus USC, but everyone's still kind of waiting for that your Oregon team for the past few years to show up.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose, you're in the 2-loss conversation now with Notre Dame, Miami. You're behind BYU, assuming they win. You're in a 2-loss conversation with Oklahoma. If Vandy beats Tennessee, you're in that 2-loss conversation with them. If Utah wins, you're in the 2-loss conversation with them. Bama has its how does that compare? If Michigan beats Ohio State, now you're in that 2-loss. You can't afford to lose to Washington, because then you start
Mm-hmm.
getting into all of the opinion, the recency bias. People are going to start pulling metrics out of left and right. It's going to be a little bit difficult to come back from it. You just have to go out and take care of business. Dan Lanning coming from the Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, basically pipeline. I have a feeling will keep the team focused, and the practice will be tougher this week, coming off a big win that actually maybe someone else would have coached the team because he knows how important this game is. You win it, you're in the dance. If not, you are then sitting around sweating that 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific college football playoff show on Sunday, December 8th or 7th,
Hmm.
to see if your name is getting called. They're only picking 11 power four teams and then the group of five. So you've got to find out how you sort of sort and where everything stands. You can make all the cases you want, and it helps that you're in the Big Ten. But if Michigan wins, you're compared. You're probably being left out of the dance. If you lose to Washington, they're going to look back it's like you had it there and you kind of tripped, and however else plays out. So don't lose focus. Take care of business. You have receivers that are banged up with your tight end game and your running game. Your offensive line has allowed your offense to be very, very successful and lethal, and your defense is really good. Don't give Washington an inch. If you give them an inch of the rival game, they are going to start that momentum starts building, especially up there in Seattle. This is not in Eugene. This is going to be a tough environment. You have to be ready for it. Purple rain's going to come down. Survive the chaos and get the job done. In the end, I think Oregon takes care of business. I think Washington plays with them through 3 quarters. And that fourth quarter, that running game and that offense for Oregon, the defense, all of it talent will eventually carry over. But it'll be a tight game for 3 quarters, and then the Ducks will prevail.
Oregon's going to know what they need to do in this game by the time the game kicks off. You're going to say, do we got a chance to play with a little more juice and get to the Big Ten title game and get get a shot at Ohio State? Do we get a shot at Indiana? What do we get a chance to do? Let's say if Ohio State and Indiana both win, they're locked in. Like, you cannot get in through the Big Ten title game, which means you have to get an at-large bid. I think that moment is not going to be lost on Dan Lanning or Dante Moore or what this team is going to be able to do. With Oregon, for me, I've been super impressed with and I said this a couple weeks ago, what Dan Lanning has been able to do with quarterbacks. It started off with Bo Nix. It continued with Dylan Gabriel, and now it's continued with Dante Moore. I've been impressed with Dante Moore. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think both of these teams have great quarterbacks that the casual fan is not going to know much about because Devin Williams has balled out there in Seattle. 72% completion rating, 19 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, and he's also ran for over 560 yards and 6 touchdowns in that realm. He has taken quite a few sacks, so that's where it kind of gets me a little bit nervous with Oregon's pass rush and their ability to get after the quarterback. They might not get to him every single time. Again, do you speed up the process? Do you make him not move through his reads as quickly as possible? This Washington team can be beaten. You can beat them if you kind of get into their grill and make that team move faster than what they want to do. If Washington can control the pace of this football game, and what I'm thinking is the Oregon-Iowa game. Iowa had no offense. But what were they able to do? They controlled the pace of the football game against the Ducks. They controlled who was going to be on the field. They had a good defense. They leaned on that, and they made Oregon really work for that win. It comes down to a couple turnovers later. Same thing with Washington. Can you get up into Oregon's grill? Can you kind of make them earn every inch in this realm? And then they start playing tighter. They start making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know if Washington can do that. I would love to sit there and say, I believe that they can. But again, Fresh, we've talked about this. You all know how much respect I have for Marcus Freeman and Dan Lanning. I do think that these are the two best young coaches in all of college football. I really do believe that. I like Jeb Fish a lot. I've been impressed with what he did at Arizona. And people don't realize when Kalen DeBoer left Washington, he left Jeb Fish with a bare cupboard. It is taken 2 years to restock some decent talent there in Seattle. He's done a masterful job of doing that. I think if this game was played 1 year from now and he had one more season to get it together, I would say I really like Washington at home. Dan Lanning, I think he knows what's at stake. I know what he has to work for. So give me the Ducks on the road, but this one I think tight into the fourth quarter. Oregon pulls away late though because they just have a little more experience.
Yeah, and they have the drive. I mean, rivalry games, chaos happens, but I think they have enough talent to get them over the hump and take care of Washington. And I think that win at Iowa helped this football team. because they had to be tight. It wasn't pretty. You just had to survive, and that right there helps them galvanize a team and help them grow up a lot quicker.
All right, Fresh. It wouldn't be rivalry week if we didn't go to one of the marquee rivalries. I don't necessarily know how good of a game this is going to be. It's the Iron Bowl. It is in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Alabama, Auburn. It is what it is this season. Talking about how Auburn was the burning pile of dog poop on the home doorstep of the entire SEC. I still stand by that notion. I still think that Auburn is not good. I think they are dog poop. I do think they are a dumpster fire of dog poop burning in kind of rolling down the Mississippi River as that dumpster kind of floats down that's full of dog poop and that's on fire. I know a lot of people are saying like Alabama could play tight. I don't think the board lets them play tight. Auburn's 1-6 in SEC play. Yeah, you beat Mercer last week. Wonderful. Good job out of you. But folks, we got to stop this pretending that Auburn's some powerhouse. They haven't been that for almost a decade now.
Well, I will say right now, I'm trying to act like Auburn's a hater rival. I go by the fact principle, Florida, Auburn, Tennessee. Their defense has been the best element of the team, and they've been just, you can definitely tell they quit halfway through the ballgame because their offense is absolute garbage. The offense was supposed to be, according under Hugh Freeze, the next coming Jackson Arnold this, and all these quarterbacks are going to throw the ball over, and Cam Coleman this and Cam Coleman that, and you got your team captain running back getting kicked off the team midway through the season. Tell apparently during fall practice, Hugh Freeze tell the defense to take it easy on Jackson Arnold so he could throw passes. It's just like, what the heck is going on? They came out and they looked good versus Baylor in week 1. They had the whole summer to get ready for that. Their defense has played great, but the defense eventually quits in every single ball game because that offense is just so abysmal. It's common sense. I think Auburn's defense will play great for a quarter, and that offense will just be so terrible that Alabama will just literally roll them. This is not 2 years ago where Jalen Milroe in that offense, they had to use the 4th down play, or there's no kick six nonsense going to happen to send Auburn to an SEC title game. This is, if Alabama hadn't lost to Oklahoma, I could see, all right, maybe Auburn could pull off and to keep this thing within 10 points. That loss to Oklahoma, I think, is going to have a refocus the tide, at least for this football game. Alabama's going to win by 3 scores. It might be over at halftime. Auburn still, like, who's going to be the head coach? Obviously, I don't think Lane Kiffin's not coming to Auburn anymore. It's probably going to be John Summerall. And if Tulane keeps going in, if Tulane makes the playoff, that whole thing keeps kicking out. How many recruits stick around? Are recruits sticking around just for a check and not for the coach? There's a lot of chaos right now there in Auburn, Alabama. And this is a chance for Bama to once again assert their dominance and show that Auburn's the little brother. And to also, from a recruiting aspect, of like, I don't care what they're paying you. Why do you want to go to Auburn? This is that kind of moment. If Auburn shows up and makes this a game, then we start having the conversation of, is Alabama a playoff team? Even if they win and they go to Atlanta, then you're kind of like, it's Alabama versus Georgia, or it's Alabama versus A&M. I know they're playing for the SEC championship game, but the Auburn team at least had some emotion early in the middle of the year. This is the end of the season. This is their biggest rivalry game. This is the one game they should be getting up for. This is the one game where these fans buy toilet paper all year round so they can roll the trees. If you go out there and struggle, hail in the board, the heat, the seat is going to get so dang hot, it ain't going to be funny, boy. You got to go out there and you got to put your foot. The way Alabama played versus Georgia in both these past 2 games is the way Alabama needs to play versus Auburn. And I think that's also why fans of Alabama, which are crazy for the most part, to their own degree, are so hateful of Kalen DeBoer, because they've seen how dominant that football team can be on those 2 games. But then every other game that he's coached, you don't know what you're going to get. So there is a lot of pressure. If you come out there a clunker or you survive Auburn, God bless the Feinbaum show for the next couple of weeks, because that is going to be a lot of entertainment. Alabama rolls. They win by 3 scores, but it could be entertaining.
It could be Fresh.
Deuce Knight has got to run for like 500 yards.
Right. And that's the only thing I thought about Fresh. I was going, okay, I don't think anything really of Auburn. How do you give yourself even a chance? And it's Deuce Knight. Like, you play the freshman, let him just kind of play loose and just roll with it and see what happens. You got nothing to lose. Because if he's successful, great. You beat Auburn, you beat Alabama, you're bowl eligible. You can kind of use that as momentum, because they have a pretty bad recruiting class right now. Only 13 kids committed. That means you're going to have to do some work in the portal. And that's not what they're going to need to pull themselves out of the basement of the SEC. Well, I should say not the basement. They're on the front porch on fire. So if you're going to win this game, it's going to have to be behind a freshman. Like, what else are you going to do? In the end, I think Kalen DeBoer learns from losses and gets the team in a different style. He gets them ready to play. I think Alabama's going to be a little more dangerous in this game. It's not going to be close. Give me the Tide. I'll go with you here, Fresh. Give me the Tide to cover and cover easily.
I mean, it's a 7:30 night kickoff Eastern, so 6:30 Central. It could be a long night or it could be an early. All right, I'm looking for another game to watch. But you'll know by halftime.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. You got any quick ones that we can hit up?
Give me Paul Bunyan's axe.
Be careful there.
Wisconsin, Minnesota. The last two games, the Badgers somehow coming out of the doldrums. Speaking of the front porch of dog food, rising up and beating Washington, Illinois back-to-back weeks. I think they go into Minnesota and get the axe back. They're playing a little bit better, and Minnesota, they are who they are. They are a 6-6, 7-5 football team under row the boat, and that's the way to always be. But the Badgers will find a way to get the axe back and keep some slight glimmer of positive momentum happening for Luke Fickell in that Badger program.
All right, Fresh. I'm going over to the game that is going to determine whether or not a team is bowl eligible. How the mighty have fallen. Penn State, who started out as a top 3 team in the country, is now fighting for bowl eligibility. They'll be in New Jersey to face off with Rutgers. Both these teams need to be this win to be bowl eligible. And you know what? I'll go with Rutgers in this one just because it would just be the icing on a crap cake for Penn State. And
I mean, how about that? All the recruits, it's funny, they all committed James Franklin. So you see all the decommits now from Penn State. Some of them, one just committed, a 4-star committed Georgia, a couple others have committed already to Virginia Tech. So you're not only your Penn State recruiting class is falling apart, you don't know who your head coach is going to be, and you'll lose to Rutgers not to go to a bowl.
It's pretty rough.
Now, I mean, there's rumors of Kalen DeBoer going to Penn State or even Brian Daboll going to Penn State. You know what? Brian Daboll at Penn State would actually
be interesting.
The NFL. He coached under Nick Saban at Alabama. That'd be interesting, but there's not much going on good right now for Penn State.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. What else you got for me?
My last one, Battle of Sunshine State, Florida State and Florida. Florida might have a really good weekend or a really bad weekend. The night before, they're going to find out if Lane Kiffin chooses them or not. So it's kind of like waiting for your rose of The Bachelor, and they can even take and beat Florida State and keep Florida State from going to a bowl game. So there's a lot on the line to swamp on. I think is it Nickelodeon or Comedy Central? Is that 4:30 kickoff?
It should be one of those two.
Excuse me. I know my girlfriend's a Florida State fan. It's on ESPN too. But then Florida State, the season was looking so great, 3-0. The wheels fell off. You couldn't return a punt to save your life in the second half for NC State trying to get bowl eligible. All you have to do is beat your hated rival, and you're going to a bowl game. And somehow, after last year's 1-win season, this looks like, all right, we made progress. As bad as it seemed, we made progress. Florida State has not won a true road game since they played in the swamp 2 years ago in 2023. That's how long they have not won a true road game since that trip to the swamp 2 years ago in 2023, the game after Jordan Travis got hurt. So can that streak also be broken? There's a lot on the line, but a fun one to watch there in the swamp.
All right, Fresh, let's play everyone's favorite game show. Guess the ticket prices. All right, Fresh, we got I love adding new wrinkles into this. Okay, Fresh, did you know that you can go to the big time matchup of Ball State versus Miami of Ohio, the Red Hawks? You could see some action. $10. $10 gets you in.
That's actually, I think, more expensive than a couple games last week.
Exactly. So, which of these 2 games could you go? You're going to get 3 games. You got to pick 2. Would cost the exact same as Ball State versus Miami.
Combined? Like one's like $6.
Yeah, combined.
Like $4.
Yep, combined. So you have Northwestern at Illinois. These are all P4 games too. These are all Power 4 conference games compared to Maction tickets. You can get 2 Power 4 games for a Maction ticket. Northwestern at Illinois, Boston College at Syracuse, and Houston at Baylor.
Well, Boston College Syracuse is a lock.
Okay. Got to pair it with which game to get in for exactly the same amount. Which one's going to get you in at exactly the same price?
Give me Northwestern Illinois.
You could get those 2 and hand over your Alexander Hamilton Fresh, and they give you a George Washington back. That's only $9. For it to be the exact same price, you would have to go see Houston versus Baylor.
Man, is
Yeah.
it four? What? Are they both four? One's a $4. Which was the $5 ticket?
All right. Northwestern Illinois, you can get in for $6. Boston College versus Syracuse.
$3.
It's $3. You can get in for $3. Basically, you could go in and recycle. It would take, all you have to do is recycle basically, I think you get 10 cents in the state of New York for a recycled can. So if you get a 30 pack of stones, you recycle all 30 Keystones because you're going to BC Syracuse. You're going to need to drink all 30 stones. And if, for those who know about the 30 brick of stones, to get into, and Houston Baylor $7.
Is it possible if, can you look up, or you have it in front of you, what's the ticket to a Texas A&M Texas game right now cheapest? Could I buy a flight right now on an airline, fly to Syracuse, New York, get a hotel for the night, go to the game, and fly back for cheaper than a single ticket for A&M Texas? If I get like a $250 round trip and like probably a $200 hotel at tops, I'm saying it's like $450, let's say $450 to get me up and back for a $3 ticket. It's probably cheaper than some tickets to other games.
It would be more expensive than Texas A&M. The cheapest get-in ticket right now is $335.
That's still pretty good though. I'm still like $335 for a ticket. I could travel, stay the entire day in Syracuse, which I'm not sure why people want to do that this time of year, but it's possible.
You could probably do it cheaper. You can probably do it for cheaper than $335. You just fly like Spirit Airlines or something like that, or Frontier.
Then you're trying to pray that you actually ride.
Exactly. But yeah, man, it is wild out there, these ticket prices as well. I do love that this is everyone's favorite game show now. Guess what? Our 4 games you can go to for under an Alexander Hamilton.
In this economy, you can watch major college, I'm going to use air quotes, major college football.
Right. I wonder, because again, we paid good money to go to UCF.
That was also, I think, September was, hopes were high. As the season progresses, you're like, people are also traveling this time of year. Teams are terrible. Like that, the factors come into play. That would actually be a nice little trend. Next year, week 0, week 1, cheapest tickets, and then compares, like, see the trends of like the cheapest tickets of the week 1 compared to like last week of the season.
All right, here, I got one more wild one for you. You can go to Houston Baylor, and Iowa State, Oklahoma State for less than, to get in to Toledo versus Central Michigan. You can go to 2 Big 12 games for cheaper than Toledo Central Michigan. Now, I will say this, Toledo Central Michigan is a hot ticket at $18 because remember, that is for a spot in the MAC championship game.
Now, the one thing we should be asking is the College Football Playoff Committee taking these metrics into account, like how many Big 12 conference or SEC or ACC or Big 10 conference games are the average or the lowest ticket prices under $10. And that right there should show you the quality of football being played in that stadium.
BYU right now would cost you $83 right now, but you can go see, although you can go see Texas Tech at West Virginia, although this would be worth it. $13. That'd be worth it.
In Morgantown, potentially burning a couch and keeping the Raiders out of a playoff spot.
And the amount of beer that you get a drink in Morgantown.
Well, $13 is like, that's 18 beers basically. You're
probably
like, that's a choice. That's a choice. An 18 pack or a ticket to the game.
Right. That'd be fun. That would be a fun one to go to. Again, with no expectations at all and getting to see Texas Tech.
If you walked around, like, I have a case of beer and I have a ticket to the Texas Tech West Virginia game, $18.
Would someone take first?
People would take the beer.
I think they would too. But who knows? Unless you're a Texas Tech fan and wanted to see them roll on West Virginia. All right, folks. Hey, we've had a lot of fun this season. It's rivalry week. It's the best week for college football. And I did even miss James Madison at Coastal Carolina there. Give me the Dukes to roll in this game just so they have an opportunity to possibly be that group of 5 team in case Tulane slips up. We got too caught up into talking about ticket prices. So just like us, don't forget, just like I don't forget James Madison, you guys don't forget, hit that subscribe button up there. Hit the notification bell. Get notified every single time we drop a new episode. You're not going to want to miss our recap episode from Rivalry Week. So make sure you lock that in here. We will be talking about this on Sunday morning. So make sure you check in with us. And you're not going to want to miss championship week. Once the playoff rankings come out and we got our playoff field, we'll be in for that. And one of our most fun episodes every year that we get to do, the annual Army-Navy game. So much fun with that one. We'll talk Oliver Perry, the Commodore over there from the Battle of Lake Erie. We'll talk about General Patton and all of the great things, the uniforms, the pageantry, the prisoner exchange, singing second, all of those fun things. So don't miss a single minute of the action. Subscribe right now.
Hit us up and engage with us. We have our short videos out there as well. So hit the entire Spinnable Sports YouTube channel, not just our regular game previews. Hit our shorts, engage with us, subscribe, spread the word. Hit us up on Twitter at IR Confidence Pod. We do a great job engaging there. We love hearing from all of you guys. We share a lot of stuff there, in-game action as well. And there might be less games going forward, but these games mean much, much more now. So the expectations, the stakes are high. They're getting raised. Now it's go time to eat for Thanksgiving. Hope you all enjoy your wonderful holiday weekend. Enjoy family, football, and we'll talk to y'all later with our recap episode. Bye, y'all.